No one else wanted to step up and fight that guy. And then what? The division just stalls. You got a number one contender, no one wants to fight. You got a champ that don't want to fight. Like, whoa, we can't all sit around. Everyone's arguing. Like, Gaethje's sitting out going like, oh, nah, I'll wait and see how things go. Other people waiting for a title shot. And it's just like, if no one fights, then the division doesn't move. You know what I mean? Like, I took a shot at a fighter that no one else wanted to compete against. But now it's clear, like, he's the number one contender now. They need to do, like, like, he warrants a title shot over anyone else. All right,
so Arman Tsarukyan just ran through Dan Hooker, and it's now set the stage for his title fight against Ilia Topuria, or at least I think it does. I'm not even entirely sure anymore. As you guys know, I've been very critical of Arman throughout this year, but I'd like to think it was for good reason. I have been saying since January, all he has to do is win one fight against a top 10 guy, and I'd happily support him getting another title shot, which is exactly where we're at now. And even though there are some people still calling for Paddy Pimblett or Justin Gaethje to get the next shot at Ilia, I am feeling pretty glad that there's at least the semblance of an actual deserving number one contender at lightweight. And I understand the irony of me saying this, seeing as Arman is solely responsible for turning 155 into a clown show for the entirety of this year, but you know what? I personally think that Arman deserves it more than Paddy and Justin's diva asses, and yeah, in this video I'm going to be talking about all this and more. But first, let's talk about the fight. Yeah, dude, if you actually thought that Dan had any chance in hell at beating Arman going into this one, then slap yourself in the face and pass over whatever crack pipe you're smoking out of. Arman went toe-to-toe with Islam in his UFC debut, and he beat Charles Oliveira. There was no way that Hooker was going to beat him. I don't want to make it seem like I dislike Dan by any means. Him versus Dustin Poirier is like my second favorite fight of all time, and fighting aside, I think he's pretty hilarious. His New Zealand Mandingo Fight League is just the type of unhinged behavior that I love, and overall, I just think that he's been a great presence in the UFC for the last couple of years. I'm not even entirely sure who I think Dan's best win is, but let's just say that all the guys he's beaten aren't exactly what I consider top tier. His win over Mateusz Gamrot was definitely unexpected, but Gamrot consistently underperforms when he's up against big names. I absolutely do not think that he won against Paul Felder, and even if he did, let's not pretend like Paul was ever a true contender. I kind of want to say that Gilbert Burns was his best win because that's the only big win that he's had that actually aged well, but even still, that fight took place in 2018. As much as I like Dan, I really don't feel bad at all for saying that he's always been a journeyman at worst and a high-quality gatekeeper at best. I'm sure that the UFC will keep letting him fight as long as he can get a win every now and then, but let's not pretend like Dan ever actually had title aspirations.
Dan, your future goals?
Well, you got to face the cold hard truth, so you're probably never going to get hands on a title, but I'm going to hang around as long as I possibly can and ruin as many people's hopes and dreams as I can, because if I can't have nice things, no one can.
Cheers. Cheers to that.
Look, I don't want to make it seem like I'm taking away from Arman's performance. The last time a Hooker got dominated this badly, I had to pay her $45, but even though Arman was supposed to win this fight, he still impressed me while doing so. I've complained a lot about Islam and Khamzat's last fights, but this is what MMA grappling should look like. Tsarukyan was either throwing offense from the top position or trying to advance his position so that he could throw better offense from top position. He wasn't just dominant, he was also fun to watch, and if you pretentious hardcore fans seriously try to convince me that Khamzat's win over DDP was equally fun to watch as Arman's win over Dan, then argue with a wall, which I'm sure you would get a kick out of because you clearly enjoy boring stuff. Arman is just a great fighter. I definitely think he's at the very least the second best fighter at 155, and I'm not even sure who wins between him and Ilia when they eventually fight. And when I say when they eventually fight, I mean they should definitely be fighting each other next. Arman, congratulations! Your debt to the UFC community has been paid, and now I can support your claim to a title shot again. However, I will be the first one to say that although I am happy to see a rightful order return to 155, this could have and should have been resolved way sooner if Arman didn't spend the better part of this year turning down reasonable fights. He turned down a fight with Michael Chandler that would have taken place during spring, and then he also cried about being offered Mateusz Gamrot because he thought Gamrot was too low ranked at 7 to fight him, but then he goes on to fight Dan Hooker, who's ranked 6, as if that's any better. He was clearly waiting for a fight with a guy he had distinct advantages over, which is why he took so long to accept a comeback fight, which is kinda lame, but hey, whatever, he probably would have beat Chandler and Gamrot anyway, so it is what it is. Arman has acted like a clown recently, but as I look around at the lightweight division, I'm still seeing some more clowns, namely in the form of Paddy Pimblett, Justin Gaethje, and even Ilia Topuria. And the bad news for Pimblett and Gaethje is now that Tsarukyan won on Saturday, they kind of go back to being afterthoughts when it comes to title contention, which is great because they never belonged in the conversation in the first place. For Paddy, it's like, alright, the guy's undefeated in the UFC after 7 fights, but the quality of the competition he's faced does not at all paint him as a guy that's champion caliber. Paddy's best win in his entire career might actually be Bobby Green, and you might be saying that Michael Chandler is higher quality competition than Bobby, but is he really though? Don't get me wrong, my opinion on Pimblett has come a long way from when he first entered the UFC, where after his first 2 fights, I genuinely questioned if he actually belonged here. And then he got gifted that terrible decision against Jared Gordon, but the guy's improved a ton over the past few years, and he clearly looks the part of a UFC fighter now. But honestly, that's as much praise as I have for Paddy right now. He is a legitimate UFC caliber fighter, but with a ton of question marks surrounding where he actually stacks up. Usually a 7-fight win streak would be more than enough to justify a title shot, but the guy is very clearly being protected by the promotion. This guy has seriously been calling for a title shot at lightweight without ever having fought Arman Tsarukyan, Charles Oliveira, Justin Gaethje, or Max Holloway. The only currently ranked fighter that Paddy's beaten is Michael Chandler, and not only does Mike suck, but his number 12 ranking is some of the most fraudulent shit in the UFC right now. Paddy is a D1 Hall of Fame beneficiary of the Dana White Privilege Foundation, and seeing as he hasn't fought in 7 months yet is somehow still climbing up the rankings indicates to me that Dana's trying to set him up for a title fight. It might not be in his next fight necessarily, but I fully expect it to happen in 2026.
Just wondering if you've seen the latest updates to the rankings that they were published yesterday, and if you have, what are your thoughts about that?
I didn't see it. What was it?
Well, there's some certain changes. Paddy Pimblett is not right now in top 5.
Fuck, that's... Hell.
Not sure.
Nah, they must be giving him a title shot, eh? They must be cherry picking him a title shot. Nah, fuck. It is what it is.
And then we have Justin Gaethje, who in my opinion is the most annoying guy at 155 right now. Honestly, I hate to even say that because he's one of the best fighters to watch in the history of the sport, but this guy has been unbelievable lately. He's been demanding a title shot as well, but he might be even less deserving than Paddy, maybe? I'm not entirely sure, guys. The whole point here is that both of these guys are begging for a shot at the belt, when in reality, neither of them are the first, second, or third best choices. If you're asking me, the actual top contenders at 155 are Arman, Charles, and Max in that order, then Pimblett and Gaethje are basically tied at 4th.
They owe me a championship fight. I'm 3-1, last 4. They came to my house, begged me to fight Max Holloway on UFC 300. And what I consider it an exhibition fight. I don't mean that the loss is not on my record. I mean it had nothing to do with the rankings of my, And in the time that I did that, Dustin Poirier, who I just beat, got a good win over Saint Denis, and then fought for the belt.
Yeah.
And then since I won, the champion's been saying he wants to fight me, and so they could have easily set that up, but they didn't. Then he vacates, and then Oliveira's 2-2 in his last fight. Already has a loss to Makhachev, and they bring a brand new guy in, and I get again.
This is diabolical levels of cope. His fight against Max was not an exhibition fight. Dog, you accepted the fight, you trained for the fight, you weighed in for the fight, and the loss is still on your record. What about this makes it an exhibition? If Gaethje is saying that his loss to Holloway shouldn't count against him when it comes to a title shot, then that also means he's saying that Max's win over him shouldn't count towards Holloway's title aspirations, and that is simply just not the case. Like, I can't be the only one who finds it weird that Charles and Max, two guys that I feel like have earned the right to be petitioning for a title shot, have barely said anything. Meanwhile, Paddy and Justin are shouting from the rooftops that they deserve one. You know what, man? I hate to be the back in my day MMA fan, but back in my day, if fighters weren't champs, they fought until they were the undeniable #1 contender, and if they lost a fight along the way, they wouldn't start crying for a title shot off of a 1-fight win streak. Justin and his peanut head manager have even started saying that he'll retire if he's not given a shot at the belt in his next fight. What a joke.
The manager of Justin Gaethje said that if Paddy Pimblett would get title shot before Justin Gaethje will out from the sport, out from the MMA. What do you think about that situation?
Ooh. You can't give Paddy the title, can they? No, I mean, it looks like they're probably going to. It looks like they're probably going to do Paddy for the belt, but that's just, that's a bit ridiculous.
Or if he gets a title shot earlier than you.
Yeah, but you can't do that either. You can't just be like, I'm not playing anymore if no one gives... Like, you can't... Like, you know how you get a title shot is you beat Arman Tsarukyan. That's how you get a title shot. You beat the #1 contender, you beat the best guy in the division, and you get a title shot. Sitting around and fucking pointing fingers and arguing at who deserves it more. Just go out there and win fights. Go out there and beat the best guy in the division, and you get a title shot.
And while I'm at it, I want to talk about Ilia himself, because now that I've seen him be champ at 145 and 155, I gotta say, I don't really like how he plays the game. Given he's not nearly as bad as a certain somebody, but I really haven't been loving all of this talk about him not even defending his lightweight title so that he can chase Islam at 170. It really seems like Ilia's more dead set on beating Islam than he is reigning over his division, which in a way I kind of get it, because it's clear that Makhachev has become his white whale, but also, if you're not going to defend your belt, then give it up and let the division move on. Honestly, I really didn't love the way that he handled his time as featherweight champion either. He won the belt in February 2024, then spent like 8 months calling out guys like Brian Ortega to be his first title defense when we all knew it was going to end up being Max. And much like when Conor McGregor was champion, I find the lack of transparency and thus the lack of activity a bit frustrating. And I totally acknowledge how unfair of a comparison this is about to be, but just look at Merab. The guy doesn't politic, he doesn't rage bait, he just figures out who the next guy is and then sets a date with him. With Ilia, there's so many games and scheming with his title reigns, which is kind of fitting because he actually kind of looks like Littlefinger from Game of Thrones. But could you imagine if he was as active as Alex Pereira? We'd be seeing banger knockouts every other month, but instead we have Topuria clip farming where he says the same exact thing in every interview, just in a different language. And the worst part is, whether Ilia fights Arman or Paddy or whoever next, I'm not convinced that 155 is going to get any less congested with him as champ. Again, much like Conor, I think his ambitious nature lends itself to sitting on his laurels until he's absolutely positive that the next move he makes is the biggest option available. In that regard, it is just good strategy, but as a fan of the guy, it just leads to a lot of waiting and listening to him talking about what he's maybe going to do in the future, possibly. And at least for right now, I'm pretty sure Ilia's only two options are either fight Arman at 155 or vacate the belt entirely. I'm curious to see what he's going to do, but I hope he figures it out quickly. Anyways, that is the video for today. Definitely let me know what your thoughts are when it comes to the lightweight title picture. Who would you give the next shot at the 155 belt, and do you even think that Ilia should be given an immediate title shot at 170 if he decides to move up? As always, if you like the video, then like the video, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do so. I appreciate you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.
So Charles Oliveira couldn't guillotine him, and you thought I'd give it a crack.
As your friend, sitting there watching him, every time I watch you fight, I'm like, fuck, he's so slow.
I'm just lulling him in.
Yeah.
I'm just lulling him in.
You know.
Nah, like, bro, it's what it is. You took a swing at the number one. It didn't play out. Now I know what you have to do. You got to fight. I'll fight. I'm not going to hold up the division. I'm prepared to fight down in the rankings. Let's go.